Welcome to another edition of the NFC North Roundtable. It's the offseason, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Thanks to the Lions. All right. The NFC North is no longer represented in the playoffs. But hey, have no fear because there's plenty of topics to cover. We have 4 topics today surrounded around each team, and I am super excited to dive into each and every single one of them. Let's just go around the table and see how everyone's feeling. Starting off with you, my boy, Troy. What up, man?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. By this time in the week, I'm better. I'm moving on. It stinks. But it's also like you immediately have to kind of get to it because the Senior Bowl is already taking place. I truly forgot the Senior Bowl was happening because we were in this playoff run. I'm not used to that. So it's kind of cool, man. The draft is really close, less than 2 months away. If my math is right there. So we're about right there. It's awesome.
So what about you, Bass? What's going on?
Similar, man. I love diving down into the draft. It happens like the day after the loss, and usually it is in the playoffs. So, right after that loss against the Niners, start diving down into the draft. The Packers just hired a new defensive coordinator, so that's interesting. And then, of course, the salary cap, which we're going to talk about today for the Green Bay Packers. But that's always interesting, and it is for a lot of teams. But it's always interesting to kind of see what teams can do or what kind of money they might have or not have for the upcoming free agency. But I'm excited for this offseason.
One bar. What's going on, brother?
Well, unlike the other two guys, my offseason started quite a while ago. So I'm full on, like I've said the last couple of weeks, mock drafts, free agency, salary cap. This is fantasy world now. This is where we get to look forward to the season coming up. This is where we can see how we're going to win the Super Bowl, and I'm excited.
Very excited to dive into some of the quarterback situation over in Minnesota. Nick, what's going on? The man of the hour, the sole holder of the first overall pick in the NFL draft this year. What's going on?
I'm on my 7th mock draft already of the offseason, so that's how it's going for Bears fans. But overall, can't complain. Things feel good. We just hired an entirely new offensive coaching staff, Shane Waldron and a couple other good guys below him. New defensive coordinator, Eric Washington, coming back to Chicago. He was one of the last defensive assistants the last time the Bears won a playoff game. So all things are pointing in the right direction. And obviously the number 1 overall pick, along with the 9. So 2 top 10 picks, can't complain. It's going to be a crazy offseason for Chicago again. It's already fast and furious, so can't complain too much.
Well, guys, like we said, we are in the thick of the offseason. Only one more game of the 2023 and 2024 NFL season. But I'll tell you what, we have to start looking toward the future. And then I wanted to start off with a surprising stay. And really not even a move. Ben Johnson has decided to stay one more year in Detroit as their offensive coordinator. And first off, a 2-layered question. Number 1, why the hell was he not picked up? I feel like that he was like one of the most popular names, him and Bobby Slowick, all this season for the head coaching possibilities. And then what does that mean for Detroit? Let's start off with Troy. What you got?
Yeah, to answer your first question, I guess there was a chance that he could have. Washington, Seattle, 2 teams that were going to go meet with him this week. So there was still options out there if he was interested, and maybe he could have landed one of those 2 spots. Then the other thought was maybe it was financially. He was asking for too much money, but they had shot that down. And the reports are it wasn't about money for Ben Johnson. So first off, the reason that he wasn't picked up, I don't really know. I guess it's just what people are. He doesn't have the most offensive coordinator experience. He's still pretty new to just having that title. He started last year with that title, so he hasn't been that guy for a while. He kind of took over a little bit in 2021, but it wasn't like a guy that we really knew. He was kind of behind the scenes doing a lot of work there. So he hasn't had a ton of experience as an offensive coordinator, and I know some teams are already kind of, not really with that unless they have head coaching experience, or maybe they just want more there, and he's still a young coach. For me personally, and again, I know the Lions better than I do the other teams, but I view Ben Johnson as the best in the league as an offensive coordinator. And if I was going to go that route, that would have been the guy that I would have reached out to. I wouldn't have cared about the price because, hey, man, it's an owner. All right. Do we really care about the price? You're telling me one of these NFL owners can't afford a head coach? They can afford these guys. But no, I don't know why he didn't get a job. But honestly, man, it's their loss. Like, as a Lions fan, I'm not complaining whatsoever about it. I'm happy he's back. And what's interesting about this isn't, I won't say this is coming from Ben Johnson himself, but according to St. Brown, I have part of the quote here. He said, basically, the reason that he's coming back is because he went back to the facility after the loss, could not sleep because there was unfinished business. So as a Lions fan, that gets everybody fired up because I know immediately I'm thinking, well, maybe Sheila was like, hey, we're going to pay you a little bit more. But then the report's like, no, that nothing's changed there to this point. Last year we heard he got paid more, but nothing's really changed. He said it was loyalty, and it was also the fact that there was unfinished business more that he wanted to prove. I think it's weird a little bit as a Lions fan to say this, but I do think from the outside looking in, this is one of the more stable franchises currently because from a leadership spot, the Lions have really good leadership right now. And I think as a coach, there's not a lot of jobs. You want to take advantage if you want to go there. You got to take the opportunity when it's there, when it's hot, because your name will just fall off. One bad season, you're not going to be heard of again. However, there's also the flip side where you take that job and it doesn't work and the guy fires you. It's almost hard to get back to that spot. And I think when you have something that's good going, it can be difficult to step out there, especially if you love, kind of the ownership and everything that's around you. And I think that's what's really strong in Detroit right now. And I don't know what that is in Washington. Seattle, I think, is a little bit stronger, but who even knows there as well? A lot of teams, they have a lot of moving parts all the time. What the Lions have is something that, honestly, I can't say as a fan in my life that I've seen. And that's really good stability and ownership, starting with that. After a really rocky start, 4-19-1, she backed her guys. And then it trickles down to the head coach, GM. They're really strong right now. And I think it's very clear what they want. And also from a roster spot, sounds like Goff's going to get extended. A lot of the core pieces are still under contract. They're set to get extensions. So the Lions right now just don't have a lot of moving parts. So it's not a bad spot to be if you're willing to step back into that job. And I'm fired up because it was really the biggest domino as a Lions fan this offseason, bigger than any free agent news. It was going to be about what happens with the coaching staff. And he's back.
And so what's your take on that, Bass?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. There was so many Packers fans on Twitter the past couple of weeks. Like, oh, don't worry. Like Ben Johnson's going to get picked up. The Lions offense is going to go back down to whatever it is. And they're not going to be the best team in the North anymore without a mind like him on that offense. And maybe, but we won't know now, at least for another year. So it definitely sucks to see that happening, or see that happen from a Packers view standpoint, because their offense is so great. Like what he's done over there with Goff, both the running backs, all St. Brown, Laporta, right? That offensive line, it's impressive. So for the Lions able to retain him, that's huge. There's been times where the Packers lose certain coordinators, and I'm like, damn, I wish they could have retained that guy, but. I hate that it happened, but it's going to be another year. So now, they are the team to beat in the North. So Packers, hopefully with their new defense, can have a recipe versus that Ben Johnson offense.
So what about you, One Bar?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, Baz. I would love to see him go anywhere else, and he's back, and I don't blame him. I mean, the open coaching spots were gross. I probably wouldn't have went there either. I mean, he's young. He's got plenty of time. I think he's going to have his pick of the litter for the next couple of years. If there's a good spot, I think he's going to be the guy. And honestly, I mean, if I'm him, Dan Campbell keeps blowing games and blowing timeouts. He might get the next spot in Detroit. I mean, he might be the next coach of the Lions. So anything's possible. No, I don't think Dan Campbell's going anywhere, but I don't blame him one bit. As a Vikings fan, I would love to see him out of the division. But he's back, and the Lions offense, big part of that is because of him, and it blows.
So what about you, Nick?
So, I mean, good for him. I kind of said it earlier this week on the live stream, but, he has his whole offense coming back. It's good to see. It works out for him in the long run because he can just grow on that. He can continue to learn. Like Dion was saying, he is a young, guy as a whole. He's a young coordinator, no head coaching experience, the only one time as an offensive coordinator. So it kind of I think what kind of scared teams was that I don't think it was the money aspect, because anyone that was interviewing him, they knew what they were getting involved with from a money standpoint. But overall, he's a young guy. He needs a little bit more experience. I mean, if he does well again, then that rumored amount that he was asking for could become a real possibility for him. So he could be playing chess with everybody right now. I'll just go do it again. I'll show that I'm a good coordinator, and now I'll get the money that someone made up a rumor for. But yeah, I'll take $14 million a year. So overall, having him in the division, I think all of us did pretty well defensively against him to a certain degree, but he is a tough coordinator to have. He's got a good offense. Dion was about to say something, then I kept going. So
I was just looking down at One Bar. I was trying to see.
I was going like this. Speak
overall,
for yourself.
Yeah, it stinks that he's staying, but we'll see what he does next year if he can do it again.
And I'll tell you what, since we're on Nick right now, okay? I mean, you are the sole owner of the first overall pick, right? And I mean, you were dead set, convinced that you guys are going to be riding with Justin Fields, not going for Caleb Williams. So my question to you is that what the hell are the Bears going to do with that first overall pick? If you're not going to take a quarterback, is this going to be reinvesting and maybe going after like Marvin Harrison or something? Or is there even a world where you see the Bears trading down and auctioning off right off to a needy team for a quarterback next season?
Yeah, so there's a lot of teams low key that need a quarterback. They're all within the top 10. I mean, the Commanders are definitely going to need one. The Patriots are going to need one. You could even say, depending on who knows what the Giants are doing with Daniel Jones. That's another really awkward situation. The Falcons want a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to stay in New York forever. So like, there's a lot of teams that could trade up, and I think that trading back within good reason is good for the Bears. I mean, you could do a trade back spot with the Commanders where you get like a second out of it, maybe another pick just for let them move one pick. But because the Bears don't have any seconds, they have a lot of thirds, but they only have 6 picks this upcoming year and 49 million in cap. So like, it's kind of an awkward situation, but they do have the 9s. So I would trade back. I would get as many picks as possible, similar to the Carolina one. So you get a young veteran, you swap first, you get next year's first, you get a second, you get actually 2 seconds in it. And I think that I would do a very similar trade to that because it worked out really well for the Bears. And if this offensive coordinating staff was able to unlock Geno Smith in Seattle, which most of the guys that we just hired did, who says they can't do it with Justin Fields? So, and then if Justin Fields doesn't work out, then if you trade back, you have 2 firsts again next year. Hopefully you trade it to another bad team like Carolina and you're within the top 3 again to take a top quarterback next year. So it's an interesting situation to be in right now.
So one bar. So is Nick crazy?
I just think the haul is going to be too much. Like when there's 3 top quarterbacks and every team, those top 3 needs a quarterback, the Bears are going to be asking for the world. And they should be. I mean, they should be asking for the world. So I don't blame them. I won't be surprised if even Washington or New England trades with the Bears just to get the guy they want. Yep. So if I'm the Bears, I mean, Nick, you're right. If I'm a Bears fan, I want them to trade out of it and get Marvin Harrison. I mean, as a Vikings fan, that's the last thing I want to happen. I do not want that guy in the division, but it's going to be very, very interesting. I think they can ask for the world, but they can't get out of that top 3 because they need to get Harrison, and it could be painful. I hope they don't get a haul. I hope the Bears do something absolutely stupid. I hope they take somebody absolutely stupid at pick 1 and they don't trade. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to end up with Harrison. I think they're going to end up with the top 3 pick, and they're going to get some picks in return.
So what about you, Troy?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I still feel like with Chicago, just in general, I'd like to see them keep building up that offensive line. I mean, I love the weapon, aspect of it as well. And when you're that high, it's kind of say build up the offensive line. Like, dude, it's your top pick in the draft. But I do think that's just in general. Like, I do like where they've kind of went with some of the weapons that they've had recently. Like, they've really improved that, especially with the DJ Moore deal. But I think in general, man, I'm just saying if I was – and here's the thing that I had to kind of push back on. I haven't really gotten into the top quarterbacks like that yet. One, because we're not going to be picking there, so I haven't got into any of that yet. But I would say if I was the Bears, I would think from the outside, I'd take the quarterback with the top pick, and then I would be shopping Justin Fields to see if I could get something in return. And then at that point, I would just then, like I said, build up the offensive line. You try to get a weapon with maybe the pick you get for Fields, and I'd move forward with that knowing that I should have an elite defense because there was a lot of questions on talent until they got Montez Sweat. It wasn't like that anything's changed. They added Sweat. You're like, wow, this is really talented defense. Like they have real talent on the defense side of the ball. So that's how I would look at it. But I can also understand where Nick is coming from, especially when it's your guy. Like you've watched that guy, and I credit Fields. Like I think he's handled a lot of things well. I mean, he could have handled things really poorly with some of the stuff that has went rough, but you have heard nothing bad out of Fields. He's handled it all professionally to the media as well. So he's handled everything, I think, the way you want a franchise quarterback to do when things aren't going great. And all the criticism that he gets from the outside and all the statistics that gets thrown out there and the quarterback wins, he's handled it all really well. So I can understand from Nick's side why he'd want to keep that quarterback. I can see the love for it. But just from looking at a player thing, I think I would try to take the quarterback with the top pick and then go from there at this point.
So what about you, Bass?
From a Packers fan standpoint, I don't want them to trade because you saw, like I said, last year with them adding DJ Moore and how great he is. And I think if you just have more picks overall, the chance of you striking gold is a lot higher. It's just statistics. And I feel like if the Bears were to just take a quarterback, pick one for some reason, I mean, it would just be the Bears thing that it would fail. It just wouldn't work. Like they did just shock everyone and go with another UNC quarterback and Drake May or something wild and pick one, and everyone would just be like, "Oh my God, he's the next greatest thing," and then he's the next Mitch Trubisky, right? Like that's what I want to happen, because I know Fields has talent, and with the new OC and potential high first round picks that you could add a receiver, a great tackle, that does worry me a little bit. So from a Packers standpoint, I want them to take a random quarterback, pick one. I don't care. Name any one of the top 3. It would just be funny because of how much Fields this, Fields that I've heard over the last 2 years. So it would just be funny for them just to, that Homer Simpson meme back into the bushes about Justin Fields, right? So that's what I want to happen. I don't want them to trade.
Got it. Bass, I'll tell you what, man. Listen, I was watching your salary cap video the other day. Great job. And I mean, we definitely need to have a conversation about how to work this over the cap side. It's one of my personal favorites. But where the Packers stand right now, looks like that they're close to $3 million over the cap. Should be relatively easy to get over. But what you were focusing on, probably the most complicated contract here, is David Bakhtiari, right? I mean, dude's on his last year. His cap number is at $40 million this year. He's had a hard time staying healthy. What are they going to do with David Bakhtiari? How are they going to open up some money so you guys can make some splash plays and sort of have some more people back in free agency next year too?
All right, this is very confusing.
Well, luckily, my friend, I'll tell you what, I have it pulled up.
Yeah, no, I have it too. It's even when you look at it, man, it's crazy, right? So let me actually bring up your screen. Scroll down. Okay, actually click on Bakhtiari. Let's go into this real quick, and I'll kind of dive down into this real quick. So the main thing here is a $40 million cap hit in 2024, 16.1% of the salary cap. That's crazy. That's not going to remain regardless. It does not matter if he's on the team or off the team. That is going to be adjusted, whether that's through a restructure. The problem here is you can only restructure a player and add void years if they okay that. You can restructure a player regardless, but you can only add void years if they okay it. That's why he doesn't have any void years already on his deal, because he wanted full control of his contract in 2024, and that's what you're seeing right now. Another problem, that is, if you were to cut David Bakhtiari, he could file an injury grievance and go after that the remaining $20 million in court. So the Packers could then still be on the line for $40 million. You can't really trade him until the new league year start, which I believe is March 13th. And if you were to trade him after March 13th, then he has to pass a physical on another team. And if he doesn't, then he's reverted back to the Packers. Then what do? Do you cut him? Then he files an injury grievance, right? They're in a very weird situation. I think the least, of course, the area to have the least friction would be just to cut him pre-March 13th and league new year start, just cutting him outright, because I think he has less of a case to file an injury grievance if they do it before the new league year start, which would save them $20 million on the cap. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, he's valuable, right? But the dude hasn't even played. He played one game last year. It's been 3 years since the torn ACL. It's a mess. Regardless, whatever way you look at it, whatever happens, it's a mess. So I think you just cut him before the new league year start. You move forward with Rasheed Walker at left tackle, and you save $20 million.
It's definitely going to be an interesting thing when it comes into salary cap, because honestly, like when I discuss with everybody else on this panel right now, y'all are all sitting in a pretty good position, I would say, especially the Lions. Vikings really aren't in that bad of territory, and the Bears are looking pretty good too as far as cap space is concerned.
Must be nice.
Certainly something to keep an eye out on. All right. Now, guys, listen, we do need to give a giant shout out. Rate to Bet US. As you know, Super Bowl 58 is right around the corner in Vegas by itself. So say, for example, that any of you are itching to put some money down and you want to get some of the best advice from some of the world's best sports bettors on the face of the planet, we need you to go subscribe to NFL Picks and Predictions, a Bet US channel, where they will give you all of the betting news and advice each and every single day, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. EST. They have a bunch of these beautiful pre-recorded videos that you can certainly check out, especially when you're trying to put together the best possible bet for Super Bowl 58. Definitely go on ahead and show some love over there for anybody that's into sports betting. All right. Final topic, boys, right before we get into it. All right. have a talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins was just interviewed saying that he is looking, or it's alleged that he's looking for like around $90 million, one of the two. Several people are talking about that he is hands down the best free agent quarterback. I'd probably have to agree at this point. One bar. When it comes to that quarterback situation, we've seen several QBs last year from the Vikings going into it. Now, with some of the players that you currently have on roster, where is your thought process when it comes into the new quarterback, right? What are you going to do? Sort of bring back Kirk Cousins for somewhere around what he's looking for, hit the drafts. What are your thoughts on the most important position for the Minnesota?
Well, I mean, you kind of nailed it. Like, is Kirk Cousins worth $45 million a year? I mean, that puts him as like the 8th highest paid quarterback in the league. Is he worth it? Yeah, he probably is. But you got to look where the Vikings are too. I mean, he's 36 years old. I mean, if Kirk Cousins was healthy all year, do we win the Super Bowl? Probably not. Do we make the playoffs? You're damn right we do. And he's a good quarterback. He's worth that money, I think. I think that's way out of the Vikings what they're looking to pay. I don't think they're going to pay that. I think even like 35 is starting to get a little like Vikings comfort zone, as they're like, you know what? Good luck. Go to the Falcons. Do your thing. I think he will get paid this offseason. I just don't think it's going to be by the Vikings. I think he's going to price himself out of it. I don't know if this is just where he's starting, and then him and the Vikings are going to spitball some things, and he comes back because he's saying all the right things right now. Hey, I want to retire a Viking. I want to stay here. Got a couple years left. Might as well be here. But when you look at the Vikings' weapons, Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison, we have some very good weapons. You can put a quarterback there. We saw what Josh Dobbs did. Nick Mullins did. We win some games. No, it was gross, but we were hanging with those guys. So I think the Vikings can get away with whether it's trading up, getting a quarterback in this draft, whether it's going the Bucs route and finding a bridge quarterback. They're still going to be able to compete if they get a decent quarterback there. Personally, I want them to go young. I don't care if we end up with one draft pick this year. Go up and get your quarterback and just deal with it for the next couple of years. We got to bite the bullet at some point. Kirk Cousins, I love him. I'm a Kirk Cousins guy. If Vikings fans are either all in on Kirk Cousins or they hate him, I'm a Kirk Cousins guy. $45 million, I'm not a Kirk Cousins guy. So I want them to get a quarterback, even if it's a bridge, rookie, whatever it is. We got the weapons. So that's where I stand. I think $35 million, it's a discussion where I wouldn't be like, oh, shit, I can't believe they did that. It's fine. Anything over that, out. Not even close.
So who are some of the bridge prospects you'd like to see?
Oh, God, they're gross. They're all gross. You got to look at that's when you get into the Gardner Minshews and the Ryan Tannehills and guys like that. And honestly, if we had to sign one of those guys for a year while we figure out our quarterback, even if we don't draft him this year, I would actually be fine with it. Like, if we're going to go that route and just realize we're not going to compete for a year or two, it's fine. Get our salary cap. Brian Flores is still here. We're going to get our defense. Draft this year, we got pick 11. Let's beef up the defense. I just don't want them to force anything. I do not want them to force anything. I don't want to take a Bo Nix at pick 11. I don't want to take a Michael Penix at pick 11. Like, don't force it this year. Don't take J.J. McCarthy. I will take a year or two of being absolute ass if we can figure it out.
So, Troy, what do you think about what the Vikings should do about the situation? Should they pay Kirk Cousins or look elsewhere?
Yeah, you guys are in a weird spot, man. I just looked up your guys' draft capital because it's like it's okay, but it's not great. So it doesn't feel like it's like super easy to like move up, for example. It's like unless you're going into future years there. And then, yeah, if you pay him, it's like, does that really help you going forward in terms of like trying to really flip this? Because you guys have a lot of key, at least on the offense side of the ball, like the key spots, you guys have the players. You have the left tackle, you have the receivers, you have the tight end. And then it's just like, okay, defense, we just need to add some more to this. I don't know. I would say the age. First off, Gardner Minshew is a Pro Bowler. So, this guy's going to the Pro Bowl. He's been pretty good this year. If you had a Gardner Minshew, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Maybe you guys do something similar like that to like what Tampa Bay did. You get Gardner Minshew, kind of like Baker. He probably costs more, but do something like that for a year. And then I guess Tampa Bay didn't even draft a quarterback. So I would almost, to what you said, one bar, unless I'm like full in on a quarterback and like I really want to give up future picks and just go get him high in the draft instead of going like JJ McCarthy or something like that. I don't know if I would force the quarterback pick, but I also wouldn't bring back Kirk Cousins. I kind of like your strategy there. I'd go sign a bridge guy, and then we'll see if there's someone that we really like. And we're just going to focus on, let's just build this roster up. Let's build up the little things that we're missing. And then next year, if we hit it, we'll hit it. And we'll just see how that guy does in that spot. Because I think you made a good point. When you guys were depleted at quarterback, you guys still competed. I mean, there was like some rough things there with Dobbs towards the end, but you guys were competitive early. So I think I'd go that way. I like Kirk Cousins too. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think he's worth the money too for somebody, but it doesn't feel like that for Minnesota at this time.
So what you got, Nick?
Kirk Cousins has a rich history over there in Minnesota. He's a big Vikings guy. People love him over there. Like, he has done a lot of good things for the franchise. Would I pay him that money? It's tough, coming off a big injury like that, getting older. I don't know. One bar, you can trade me everything you got for the next couple of years for the number one pick if you want. I can send that to you too if you want to, start things off right away. But you could get a Baker Mayfield type guy in free agency this year who ends up ripping it up. You get really lucky until like everyone's saying, kind of that bridge, but it's tough. That injury is just my big red flag. Like, you want guaranteed money coming off a serious injury like that, and you're on the wrong side of 30. Everything's just big red flags right there. It's tough.
So last but not least, Bass.
Yeah, once that injury happened, I kind of figured like Kirk's tenure in Minnesota was over. That's just the way I saw it based off the contract reasons, injury reasons. And for the Packers' sake, I want them to go pay him $45 million for the next 2 years, because that'll just, keep them in mediocrity for the next 2 years. So that's kind of how I look at it. I completely agree with, maybe holding out this year, unless like you're at, pick 11, you said? If you're at 11, or if you get a killer deal to move up and you have a guy, or you want that guy 100%, a bridge quarterback, like Dion said, Pro Bowler Gardner Minshew, bring that guy over there, right? That's crazy. I didn't even know that. That's crazy. I think Baker's a Pro Bowler too, and I was like, he got that over. It was a replacement. He got it over Jordan Love. I was like, oh, come on, man. Right. All right. It's not the point. Not the point. Right. No, but seriously, I think a bridge quarterback is probably your best bet there. If 45 is way too much, like Nick said, after an injury like that, that's just insane. And respect to Kirk, man. Like, he's played some good football over the years, and I think whatever team he goes to, he will make that team better, like 100%. But I think the Vikings have to move on. They kind of already started to do it last year with getting rid of some of their veterans. I think they need to continue that and keep building young. And that's what I would do if I was a Vikings fan or Vikings team.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another edition of the NFC North Roundtable. And like we said before, we are not done in the offseason. We're still going to be shoving content down your throat, surrounding around the combines, more cap space conversations, the draft, free agency, roster reviews, you name it. All right. It's a sad time for many that now football is all but over, but we will do our best to ensure that we keep you up to date of your favorite team of the NFC North. Smash that like button on your way out. Super easy way to support. We'll see you next week.